of this life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
आज का भारत सिर्फ आगे नहीं बढ़ रहा, भारत खुद को नेक्स्ट लेवल पर ले जा रहा है.
Together with my friend Prime Minister Modi, who I was pleased to see again last night, we took on our bilateral relationship and raised it to its highest level ever.
We need new answers. That's why we are coming to India.
And as a citizen of Nepal, India's closest neighbor, I feel a deep sense of pride and optimism seeing this stride.
The world's biggest sporting spectacular is finally here. From breathtaking goals to unforgettable drama. Get closer to every match, every story, and every turning point in this tournament. Catch.
Hello and welcome, I'm Ruby Barlow and you're watching The World Report. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. US President Donald Trump says a preliminary agreement to end the war with Iran has already been signed, with full details expected to be released soon. Trump made the announcement during talks with French President Emmanuel Macron at the G7 summit. US officials say the Strait of Hormuz is expected to reopen on Friday, when the agreement is set to be formally signed in Geneva. Technical talks on Iran's nuclear program are also expected to begin this week, while sanctions relief will depend on Tehran meeting its commitments. The US-Iran ceasefire deal has created a major political challenge for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Critics say he now faces a choice between clashing with President Trump or accepting a deal many in Israel believe fails to protect the country's security interests. Russian authorities say falling drone debris caused a fire at an oil depot in the Krasnodar region near Crimea. The blaze broke out in the Poltavska area, prompting the closure of a nearby road linking the region to the Crimean Peninsula. Officials reported no casualties. A US Air Force B-52 Stratofortress bomber crashed shortly after takeoff from Edwards Air Force Base in California, killing all 8 crew members on board. The aircraft was on a routine test mission when it burst into flames after leaving the runway. An investigation is now underway into the cause of the crash. Australian police have launched an investigation into allegations that activists detained by Israeli forces during a Gaza aid mission were subjected to sexual assault and torture. The move follows a meeting between 4 female activists, Foreign Minister Penny Wong, and senior officials in Canberra. Israel has rejected the accusations. Average US gasoline prices have fallen below $4 a gallon for the first time since mid-April. The decline comes as markets respond to a preliminary US-Iran agreement that could lead to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Crude oil prices dropped more than $4 a barrel after President Donald Trump announced the deal. And finally, Belgium fought back to earn a 1-1 draw against Egypt in the World Cup. Imam Ashur gave Egypt the lead with his first international goal in the 19th minute. The introduction of Romelu Lukaku in the second half proved decisive, with Belgium equalising just 20 seconds after his arrival. High-stakes political messaging is escalating rapidly on day 2 of the G7 summit in Evian, France, as US President Donald Trump aggressively defends the technical parameters of the new interim framework with Iran. Taking to Truth Social, Trump declared that Iran has formally agreed to never acquire nuclear weapons under the new Memorandum of Understanding. He explicitly rejected reports of massive financial payouts to Tehran, branding claims of a $300 million fund as fake news spread by political opponents. Listen in to what he has to add.
The main thing is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. They fully agreed to that with strong policing powers, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, which is what it was all about, because they probably would have used it if they had it. We've done a great job, and hopefully it's going to be a good relationship, and we're going to get along. And if we don't, we go back to where we started, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. The Iran deal that we made is going to bring a lot of success to the world.
Vice President J.D. Vance strongly backed the president on ABC News, confirming that the White House will release the official text this week. Vance added that Iran will not receive a single dime in sanctions relief or frozen assets unless they strictly perform their obligations. Despite the fierce rhetoric, critical technical details remain highly obscure. Team Trump has yet to clarify who will oversee verification or how highly enriched uranium buried under damaged Iranian nuclear sites will be safely removed before the formal signing ceremony this Friday. Now we are joined by our guest, Daniel Wagner, who's the CEO at Country Risk Solution. He's joining us live from Denver in Colorado. Daniel, thanks very much for joining us this morning on NewsX World. Now we've heard just a couple of hours ago that we may be seeing the details of this signed MOU coming out very shortly. The oil markets, of course, have reacted very positively, with oil prices dropping across the United States and across the world as well. How do you think that we will expect to see no nuclear weapons for Iran in this deal? And how do you think Israel may react to this deal as well, Daniel?
So the challenge here is that there are many, many unknown unknowns on all sides. They can release the contents of the MOU, and some of those questions will be answered. But there are still many things that we are not going to know or understand, or that will remain unclarified. Let's bear in mind, this is a memorandum of understanding. It is not a final agreement, and we're nowhere close to that. And the really important things, such as Iran's nuclear capability, permanent opening of the Strait of Hormuz, reparations for damages in the war, etc. That stuff all has to be defined. What the important thing is right now is that it appears that both sides, all sides, would like that strait opened without tolls and freedom of navigation for those ships that ordinarily come to and from that waterway. So it seems likely that that is going to happen, but beyond that, I think it's pure speculation about what will or won't happen. I would add that there are many weak links in the chain here. Since Israel is not a party to this agreement, if Israel decided to and wanted to continue to attack Hezbollah or other Iranian proxies throughout the region, Or indeed, if those proxies decided that they wanted to attack Israel because they don't like the deal or they don't want to see peace break out, well, I think there's every reason to believe that this thing could completely fall apart.
Indeed, Daniel. It seems as though there's still a lot of unknowns that could contribute to this deal falling apart. There's also some unknowns regarding the Iranian nuclear program as well. There's unknowns whether who will see verification or how damaged Iranian nuclear sites will be safely removed as well. We also heard perhaps that Iran was pushing for a dissolution of this enriched uranium to bring it down to a lower enrichment level. Now, Daniel, if we look at this uncertainty regarding the uranium program, do you think that we perhaps may see the IAEA inspectors enter Iran to verify this? Do you think it will be inspectors from the United States themselves? Do you think that perhaps we will finally see some certainty regarding Iran's nuclear program, given the fact that it is quite a crucial aspect of how this deal was negotiated? Now, of course, these statements have come out at the G7 summit, which is taking place in France right now in Avion-les-Bains. There is some very critical negotiating taking place at this summit. But Truth Social, on Trump's Truth social media platform, Trump has declared that Iran has formally agreed to never acquire nuclear weapons underneath the new MOU, which would be unprecedented for this agreement, especially if this agreement does head forward. Now, there is also caution warned by analysts. Of course, in this deal, it was stipulated that there needed to be a regional calm. However, Israel has said that they would not accept backing down in southern Lebanon, in Gaza, of course, as they do fight conflicts on those fronts. And so it does remain an element of uncertainty in the deal at this stage. Now, taking to Truth Social, Donald Trump has rejected reports of a massive financial payout to Tehran, and he said that these reports come from political opponents. Now, of course, the previous Obama deal did provide a payout to Iran. With the lifting of sanctions, of course, this is expected to bring massive financial injection into the Iranian economy, which of course has been in trouble not only during this war but previous as well. Inflation of the Iranian rial has been quite significant, affecting not only cost of living for those Iranian citizens, but also government operations inside of Iran as well. Now, of course, if there is indeed sanctions lifted in this deal, when we do see details released later this week, it will be notable to see where these sanctions are released from, whether this involves the unfreezing of frozen funds, which has also been a key component of this deal so far. Now, of course, we have heard some comments coming from Vice President J.D. Vance, who strongly backed the president, of course, on American media. He's confirmed the White House will release the official text this week. Now, Vance has also added that Iran will not receive a single dime in sanctions relief or frozen assets unless they strictly perform their obligations. Now we are being rejoined by Daniel Wagner, CEO at Country Risk Solution. Daniel, thanks very much for staying with us. Of course, Vice President J.D. Vance has said that the White House will release the official text later this week. What do you think we can expect to see in this official text? Well, there's been details that's come out over the last couple of weeks in regards to, of course, the three main components being the nuclear program, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and the lifting of the American blockade on Iranian ports. What else do you think we might see in this MOU?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much else we can expect to see. I think the parties have an interest in keeping information about what there is agreed upon and what there is to be discussed somewhat confidential, because I think that will show just how big the bridge and the gap is between where they are and where they might like to be. But based on my understanding, we can expect to see that the Iranians have agreed that there will be no nuclear weapons. One question there is whether the denuclearification is going to occur in Iran under UN or US auspices or outside of Iran. I think the preference for the US side would be that it occur outside of Iran. That we cannot say for sure. As for reparations, we've seen the reports of $300 billion being bandied about in the international press. We should bear in mind also that probably $120 to $150 billion of Iranian assets have been frozen since 2018, since Trump initially got rid of the JCPOA. So if there is going to be a big number thrown around, a significant part of that, I would think, is actually frozen Iranian assets. Now, Trump has been very clear that he has no intention of releasing any funds until there's a reason to release the funds. In other words, until the Iranians have done something that warrants releasing the funds. But from the Iranian side, they're saying there's at least $24 billion that they want immediate access to, and they even would like half of that before there is any further discussion, and then maybe a progress payment of the remaining 12 billion after that. So again, here we're back to this issue of the unknown unknowns. I think Vance is going to keep this at a very high level. I think the Iranians are as well. There's a fair amount of disinformation that's going about from all sides who may not be in favor of any type of agreement. The Israelis certainly are not happy. I can't imagine that Hezbollah is happy or some other of the Iranian proxies. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Indeed. Daniel, please don't go far. We'll be rejoining with you very shortly. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has broken his silence on the newly announced US-Iran peace framework. In his very first televised address since the diplomatic breakthrough was unveiled, Netanyahu strongly defended Israel's strategic operations, asserting that the joint US-Israeli military campaign against Iran had successfully spared the nation from what he described as the Islamic Republic's threat of nuclear annihilation. Listen in.
הדבר הכי חשוב, שהצלנו את מדינת ישראל מאיום השמדה גרעינית. כי צריך להבין, איראן דהרה לגרעין, ממש לפני עמקה לביא, היא דהרה לגרעין, ודהרה להטמין את תעשיית הגרעין והטילים שלה עמוק מתחת לאדמה. אם לא היינו פועלים בזמן שבו פעלנו, ובעוצמה שבה פעלנו, גם בעמקה לביא, ואחר כך בשאגת הארי, בשיתוף פעולה היסטורי עם הנשיא טראמפ, ועם הצבא האמריקני, אם לא היינו פועלים בדרך הזו, לאיראן כבר היו פיצצות אטום. ומה המשמעות? המשמעות היא שמיליוני אזרחי ישראל, אתם ששומעים אותי עכשיו, כולכם הייתם בסכנה איומה של מוות איומן.
Back to you, Daniel. In his first televised address, Benjamin Netanyahu describing the joint campaign against Iran had successfully spared Israel from the Islamic Republic's threat of nuclear annihilation. Of course, we see here a narrative coming from Benjamin Netanyahu where he's trying to pose, to frame this MOU for a win for Israel. Now, how do you think the Israeli public is going to react to this MOU? Are they going to go with Benjamin Netanyahu's narrative of saving from nuclear annihilation, or will they rather be unhappy that this war won't continue? Do you think they might take it out on Netanyahu at the upcoming election very soon?
Well, I think Netanyahu has many things to worry about in the upcoming election. This is just one of them. As you may know, there's quite a diverse range of opinions in Israel about this and many other issues. My understanding, based on discussions with the friends that I have in Israel, is that most people in Israel are not going to be very happy with this. I mean, I think he had a lot of support for what he and Trump were trying to do by commencing this war 3 months ago. And many people in Israel thought that there was a pretty good chance that this was going to be successful, at least at the outset, until they saw that the Iranians had prepared very well for such an eventuality. I think less concerning for Netanyahu may be his own political fate, although some people may disagree with that. More concerning may be the existence of an existential threat to Israel that is not going away. If we bear in mind that the Iranians still have presumably up to 70% of their missile and drone capability left, that they are quickly in the process of, or will be in the process soon, of putting back in place launchers and other materiel that was damaged or destroyed during the war. And with the money flowing, that's exactly what they're going to use a portion of it for. Then they're going to have to ask themselves, well, what was this all for? In fact, many people in the States are already asking themselves, what was this all for? They're comparing where we are now in terms of the potential agreement with where we were with the JCPOA during the Obama administration. Many people here in the States believe that we are actually worse off. And it certainly seems possible that in the long term, we will be worse off because we went to the trouble and expense and danger and everything else that goes with it of launching this war. And many people are asking, what do we have to show for it?
Indeed. Daniel, thank you very much for speaking with us today. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you here with us on NewsX World. Now we move to our correspondent, Pratiksha Singh. She's joining us from the NewsX World newsroom. Pratiksha, what more do you have for us on Benjamin Netanyahu's latest statements?
Ruby, we all know that Benjamin Netanyahu has been anti-nuclear programs in Iran since long back, and this is not only his stance, it's pretty much the whole West that is like that. And Iran seems to be very adamant about their nuclear programs, especially the junior Khamenei that came, Mujtaba Khamenei. Earlier they were still practicing they were still working on their nuclear programs, but now they are completely adamant about their nuclear uranium enrichment programs, and they don't seem to be backing off. Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, they are trying their best to make sure that Iran doesn't succeed in it. We have seen how, as our guest Daniel Wagner also mentioned, that in Obama regime, JCPOA, USA basically withdrew from the JCPOA. However, it did not stop Iran from really continuing with their nuclear programs yet, because we have seen that multiple times IAEA also kind of openly criticized Iran about it. But till now it was China that was backing them. But now, after the meeting of Donald Trump with Xi Jinping, we have seen that China has also kind of taken a firm stance on the whole thing that is going on in Iran, especially regarding the nuclear enrichment program. They did not directly but indirectly try to raise their voice against it. We remember how the spokesperson, the foreign ministry spokesperson of China, did raise this issue and said that they do not endorse any kind of nuclear program overseas. So this was definitely going to be in regard to Iran, because it happened right day after when Donald Trump and Xi Jinping had a meeting. So yes, Benjamin Netanyahu can really try his best. He's been constantly talking about it, and we know that day before yesterday only that Iran and USA came out with a nuclear deal. We don't know the terms of it yet completely, what the insides of the deal overturned, but for now we do know that nuclear program was definitely a part of it. USA, since they are not very fond of the Iran's nuclear enrichment program, they would have definitely put out this condition. But on the other hand, Iran doesn't seem to be stopping for now. To avoid any devastation, we know that Iran is the one suffering on land, because United States is suffering, but only the troops that are present in the state of Hormuz, that were present in the state of Hormuz, were kind of being targeted. But now we know that since the United States kind of carried out heavy strikes on Iran later that night, and Israel did, it was Iran where casualties happened, that suffered damage to its to the loss to the civilians, to the infrastructure, and on land. So yes, Iran definitely might have thought of pausing their program for once, but it is not going to be evitable that way, because we know that Iran probably in the near future will definitely begin it again. We don't know how they are functioning behind the doors, but we can only assume that Iran will probably not stop. They would have stopped it, paused it primarily for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, because we know that it was not only the Middle East that was suffering because of it. We know that the whole world as the whole globe was basically suffering due to the surge in oil prices, as we know that 1/5 of the oil primarily passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and it really, we saw how there was a surge in the prices, and especially the crude Brent oil. So yes, Iran, to pause all of that misery that was happening to the world, they might have stopped it, but since we saw that Benjamin Netanyahu has given multiple statements regarding this, this is not going to stop Iran any which ways. If they want it, they will do it behind their doors, behind their backs, but they won't stop. Back to you, Ruby.
Pratiksha, please don't go very far. We are joining with you very shortly once again. Now we move to the United States, where major tragedy has struck the US Air Force. 8 people were killed after a B-52 Stratofortress strategic bomber crashed and burst into flames moments after takeoff from Edwards Air Force Base in Southern California. The Boeing-built aircraft was on a routine test mission supporting a radar modernization program when it went down at around 11:20 a.m. local time on Monday. Air Force officials described the crash as unsurvivable, with all 8 crew members on board losing their lives. The victims included military personnel, government civilians, and defense contractors. Boeing has confirmed that 2 of its employees were among the dead. The crash caused significant runway damage, forcing Edwards Air Force Base to suspend flight operations temporarily. A full safety investigation is now underway, with officials saying the cause remains unknown. The incident marks the first B-52 crash since 2016 and the deadliest involving the iconic bomber in decades. Let's listen in to what Colonel James Hayes, the Deputy Commander at the 412th Test Wing, has said on this.
Today, Edwards Air Force Base experienced a horrible tragedy, and we lost 8 great Americans. This crash is deemed to be unsurvivable, and right now our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those that lost their loved ones. We're sending teams out to notify the next of kin right now as we speak, and those next of kin notifications will take place over the coming hours and remainder of the day. It was a B-52 that was on initial takeoff, supporting the radar modernization program, which is it was a local test sortie. It took off and immediately after takeoff crashed and burst into flames. Our team of first responders snapped into action and immediately cordoned off the area and took the appropriate action to start putting out the flames. While that was taking place, our base responded in kind to establish an emergency operations center and a wing operations center to ensure that the command and control of all base agencies and the response for the recovery effort was underway. After reviewing the footage of the crash, it was deemed that this was an unrecoverable crash and unsurvivable. At this point, we don't have any indication as to what the cause was of this. We won't be able to release that information, and we don't have an ability to get that anytime soon. Right now, we're going to stand up an interim safety board to do the initial gathering of the facts, and that will then lead to a safety investigation board, which will look into those root causes. Once that's complete, it takes about 30 days. Then it'll go into an accident investigation board, and then that will determine all of the information that we can release to the public and to the next of kin.
We're being joined again by our correspondent, Pratiksha Singh, joining us from the NewsX World newsroom. Pratiksha, what more do you have for us on this latest tragic airplane crash?
Well, Ruby, this is indeed a tragic accident that happened in the United States. It's not the first time that it's happening. We have seen it to be happening a lot in the United States recently. And as Colonel James did rightly mention, that various search operations and rescue operations was carried out right then and there. But this is not limited to a normal tragic accident that happened in the United States. It raises basically serious questions about the sustainability of the military feats in the United States. Not only that, we have also seen that military modernization priorities kind of reflects really badly here in this accident, because this fleet was very important, and especially the Edward Air Force, it holds significance. Now let's talk about primarily the fleet crashing. It is not the first time it's happening. The B-52 entered the service in the 1950s, and this aircraft involved reportedly parts of the Air Force modernization and radar testing program. So it clearly shows how militarily important, significant this particular fleet was, and we have seen that this has been continuing multiple times. This attack, this particular kind of accidents, the US intends to keep the B-52 operational into the 2050s, potentially making some aircrafts nearly a century old. Now this crash will inevitably reignite debates about whether modernization efforts are keeping pace with aging infrastructure. And not only that, the other thing that is emerging is the timing of this particular incident, specifically geopolitically, because this accident this tragic accident comes at a sensitive time when B-52 bombers have been heavily utilized for strategic deterrence missions and recent operations in the Middle East, keeping in mind the United States and Iran whole fiasco that is going on. And not only that, the biggest question here raising is on the Boeing and its modernization program. We have seen how Boeing is definitely very low when it comes to credibility. We saw how they were to bring back, Boeing was definitely assigned to bring back the astronaut Sunita Williams and her colleague Mr. Bush to back to Earth, but eventually we saw that they were not able to, and they were left stranded for months in the International Space Station, and in the end it was Starlink that had to continue this mission and bring them back. And reports indicate that Boeing personnel were aboard this flight as well. This suggests a close connection to an ongoing upgrade program, and even if investigators ultimately find pilot error or a mechanical failure unrelated to modernization, the incident may increase congressional oversight of B-52 upgrade efforts and their costs. So the Air Force is investing billions in new engines, radar systems, communication upgrades, and electronic warfare capabilities to extend the bomber's service life. This accident could slow aspects of testing until investigators determine the cause. So yes, what the investigators of Boeing will be focusing here on would be what this investigation will likely be examining. Number one would be engine performance during takeoff. The other one would be flight control systems, radar modernization. So yes, Ruby, it's just a matter of time that we see how this investigation goes, and if the investigation point to age-related structural or mechanical issues, which is kind of expected. So this will be raising serious questions on the whole fleet and the military deployment, the military aircraft deployments in the United States, given that they show that they are so strong militarily worldwide. Back to you, Ruby.
Pratiksha, thanks very much for that update. We now move to some breaking news. China is projecting confidence in its economic outlook, with the National Bureau of Statistics saying the country has ample policy space, strong reserves and flexible tools to maintain stable economic growth. A spokesperson for the Statistics Bureau emphasised that boosting employment and raising household incomes remain key priorities as Beijing looks to strengthen consumer spending and support domestic demand. The official also noted that there is still significant room for China to expand investment, signalling that infrastructure and other investment-led measures could play a larger role in supporting growth. The remarks come as Chinese policymakers seek to sustain economic momentum amid global uncertainties and ongoing efforts to rebalance the economy toward stronger consumption and investment. The government says it remains equipped with a wide range of policy options to ensure steady growth and economic stability in the months ahead. And that's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates coming to you from around the world.